everybody, it's Teza, and I'm so happy to be talking to you today while Carter is finishing up his many important projects. He will be with us real soon, back from his sabbatical, and he can tell you all about what he's been doing. Really incredibly socially uplifting stuff having to do with the controversy that's going on out there in the world about DEI. So be sure to stay tuned and come back here if you want to hear what Carter's been up to. But meanwhile, I want to talk to you today about some things that I'm glad he's not here, because Carter goes off sometimes in a different direction than I do. And I really want to share some things from my heart to yours without any interruption. So for once, Carter is okay to not be here, but usually I try to encourage him to step in and say a few words. So I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who is a Native American historian. He is a Native American. His name is Patush, and he's very involved with the United Nations. He goes all around the world talking on the behalf of Native Americans and celebrating indigenous people all throughout the world, everywhere from like New Guinea to the Himalayas. The indigenous people are, still doing their thing and living together in communities and honoring their ancient ways as well as the modern ways. They sort of live in both worlds. So Patush has been a good friend of mine for, about 25 years. And so we cut to the chase, like good friends do. And right away he said, Tez, I'm really upset. The young people out there today, they are so depressed, anxious, confused, and not happy. So he said, what can I tell them? And he has a very sought-after speaking authority because he is of the Acoma tribe, which is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he speaks on behalf of not only the spirituality of indigenous people, but, of course, their role in today's world. And to me, their role is to bring some sanity to a crazy, mixed-up world that's spinning out of control, on the verge of a nervous breakdown, with so many challenges affecting us. And too many people forget the essence of our humanity, which Patush and I agree, it is our spirit, or it is our connection to our spiritual life. And if we don't honor that connection, it's so easy to be upset, confused, depressed, etc. And we don't want to rely on drugs to feel okay, but many people are these days. Many people are choosing to take all sorts of, I don't know what they're called, the medicines are basically in a certain category of serotonin uplift or something like that, and they are anything like from Prozac and Xanax to a lot of people are using plant medicines like ayahuasca, mini doses of LSD and ecstasy and all that stuff. They're using it with the hope that it will help them to get out of stress and anxiety. And so what I want to talk about today is my way of getting out of anxiety. And believe me, I've experienced a lot of it. I'm in recovery from alcoholism, drug addiction, you name it, bad behavior, just acting like the world was out of control. And it was for me up until the age of 36 when I surrendered to my natural state of mind, which to me is the highest high there is. Let me just say that right off the bat. For any of you who are struggling with taking any kind of substance or for any reason, thinking that, mini dosing is going to help you to come into being able to accept the world as it is, let me just assure you that the natural state of a human consciousness is the highest experience that I have ever experienced. Now, somebody else might tell you something differently, but in order for me to get to that place, I had to do some, what we call housekeeping. It's like cleaning up your house. If you were going to have a guest arrive, you'd pick up the litter and maybe do a few dishes and make it so it's decent for a visitor. So let's say that your mind, your consciousness, your way of living is not a happy place, but yet you want something more. You know there's something more. So how can you get that? Well, the first thing you want to do is to clean up your act, which is doing the housekeeping, so that you can invite a new and higher and better and a more balanced way of receiving this wonderful gift of being alive. And that's what I wanted to suggest to people who are listening today, that it's not through taking drugs, it's not through doing many doses of this and that, and I don't even think really long-term therapy is that effectual. I think short-term therapy can be very effectual. And Carter and I, we would not be married for 32 years, believe me, if we had not done a lot of going to a third party, a paid therapist, a totally objective point of view, and doing whatever we had to do to go to the next step in our ability to communicate. But if you're just talking about your own self and you're not in a relationship with somebody, you're just talking about your own happiness. Like Batush and I were talking about young people having a lot of confusion and unhappiness, and they're worried and they're scared. And so I'm addressing those young people. And if you're not a young person, you might benefit from what I have to say. So to trust that this world is not spinning out of control, even though it seems like it is a hard thing to do for people who don't have a relationship with spirit, with something much, much bigger than we are. Our ego, let's call it the ego. This person that I am, I'm Teza, I have an ego that is based upon the fact that I'm a certain sex, a certain age, a certain nationality, a certain education level, a certain, ability. That's all like circumstances that came ever since I was born, one after the next were, recognized by me, and that became my identity, my ego. But I'm talking about something that is not the ego. That inner part of us, that stripping away things like the gender, the nationality, the identity of whatever I am in society, artist, writer, podcaster, family person, all of that. If you take all of that away, what am I? I am an incredible, powerful, connected energy that is unlimited. And I experienced this because I was in such pain myself when I was younger. I experienced this by training my consciousness to be quiet and to get centered on the inward experience. And some people call this meditation, yes. Some people could just call it relaxation therapy. Some people call it just being able to live and survive without feeling like you're falling off a cliff, that something's going to kill you. That's anxiety. I've had a lot of anxiety. And when anxiety comes into my life today, which it does just at that point when I'm ready to fall asleep, where I've let go of a lot of things that keep us busy and occupied throughout the day, and I'm ready to have that state of unconsciousness, which is rest and very much needed. We can't function without sleep. There seems to be, for me, a person who does not do any drugs or alcohol. I just have something inside my, nature, my essence, that is terrifying. And it comes only at that point where I'm ready to go to sleep. And what do I do when I recognize that it's present? I tune into that technique that I use to meditate and to get out of my thinking mind and to get into that connected to the spirit mind, which has no thought, which is really like unwinding of psychological and daily disturbances. And when you get to that place that is very calm and peaceful, and your mind is still, then that is our spirit. That is our essence. That has never changed from the moment we were gifted that spirit in this body that we came into the world with, to the moment that this body runs out of its expiration date and the spirit is free once more until it goes to another place or inhabits another body or even travels to who knows what. We don't know. I mean, this is not made up stuff I'm talking about. This is my experience. This is my true perspective of my life. I am a spirit in a human body. And for any person who has witnessed and been privileged enough to be by the bedside of someone who is leaving their body, and I have had that experience just most recently, just a couple of weeks ago. My friend, our friend Gary, died of a brain tumor. Anybody who has experienced and witnessed the leaving of the spirit within a human body knows how profoundly impactful it is. It's like witnessing the birth of a child. It's magic. All of a sudden, there's like life. There's consciousness. There's something magical about life. And when it goes to the next stage, which is not necessarily death of anything except the body that wears out. It's like an old car. It just wears out. It gets worn and torn. But the essence of your being doesn't wear out. It just keeps in the flow of this existence that we are all participating in, whether or not we are in a body or not. We are still connected, all of us. In other words, when somebody I know who has left their body because the body has disintegrated or gotten old or was killed in an accident or, something horrible happened where the body came to a stop, the spirit of that being, that essence, that person is still reachable, still communicatable, and I can resolve anything I need to with that person's essence, with that person's spirit. So take that same thought and bring it to the world and all the confusion and all the troubles and all the challenges that are affecting people's ability to feel at ease, to feel okay about themselves, about life in general. Well, there is the choice factor. We get to choose whether or not we accept what is going on and feel okay about even the most horrendous situation, or not. If we choose to not accept it and get all upset and to say this isn't right, this is going to be the end of us, this is going to be the end of humanity, the end of the U.S., the end of me. I mean, we can really get ourselves in a state if we choose to. Do you choose to resist what is? Or deep down inside your heart, do you really feel that you would rather experience the merging of your isness, your essence, with this whole shebang, this totality of experience called, existence? It's much more pleasant to feel connected, like cellularly, that we are all in this together, whether or not we're alive or dead, or lived 3,000 years ago, or will live 3,000 years hence. We are all connected energetically. And yes, the body rots, The body breaks, the body wears down. I mean, it's hard to even imagine that when you're a teenager. But if you look at your parents or your grandparents, or if you see a movie star who all of a sudden has aged before your very eyes, oh, wow, what happened to George Clooney, man? He used to like have black hair. Now he's all silver, but he's still pretty groovy. So the aging process is natural. And what else is natural? The coming and the going of goodness and not so goodness, of darkness and light, of day and morning and evening and night, and being afraid and being absolutely comforted. And all these opposites, they happen. Sometimes one feels happy, and the other time, sometimes you feel sad. And then you feel happy again. So there's this pendulum shift. Nothing remains the same, except that connection that I have, and hopefully you have, and if you don't have, you will want one after hearing that this is possible. That connection that you have to spirit, which sometimes people call God, but God to me is a pretty political word these days, so I feel better using spirit, or even more ancient, I like to call that connection to the universality, the oneness of us all. I call it Om, which comes from the ancient scriptures of the far east, the pre-Hinduism, pre-Buddhism. They had the Vedas and the Upanishads, and these ancient dudes were sitting in their caves wondering about these questions that teenagers do today and going within for their answers in meditation and silence. And what did they experience? They actually recorded Om, which is pronounced more correctly, Aum. That is what they heard, and what they experienced was this incredible connection that I've been describing, the oneness that we all are when we choose to approach life through our spirituality, which is a choice that we all make. And if nobody chooses to approach life in their spirituality, this world will self-destruct. It will. So the more of us who choose this spirit life and spread that incredible enthusiasm to others by our actions, our thoughts, our deeds, a smile instead of a frown, the more people who do this, our world changes. Even a thought that you're holding in your mind affects the world, because a thought is like a seed. I call it a thought seed. It's a seed that you're planting that eventually becomes an act. If you're reaching for an apple, your brain is the first thing that said, reach for apple, and then your arm goes. It's a split-second response, but there's no way that you're reaching for the apple until your brain wants that apple. Your brain is central headquarters for all your operations in this physical body. So if we start working with our brain, which is the organ that actually can be taken out of your skull and held in a hand, and if we start coordinating that concept that we do have a brain, but within our beingness is our mind, which is a metaphysical word, a metaphysical organ, I call it, that can't be detected. There's no place in your body where you can say, yeah, the mind, it resides on my left shoulder, right above, the heart chamber. No, it is a metaphysical organ, just like the actual spirit, because you can't see a spirit, you can't touch a spirit, you can't smell it or taste it. It is in the unseen dimension. So if you're a young person and you've never heard these things, I can imagine you say, what? I'm freaking out. But I want to know more. So it's very good to want to know more. It's very good to be curious. My 13-year-old, soon-to-be 13-year-old grandson, step-grandson, but I don't use the step word because I was involved with raising his mother from a very early age. I forget about being the step thing. And so our grandson, I asked him the other day, I said, I'd like to teach you how to meditate for your 13th birthday, because that's a very good time to start to learn to switch off your thinking mind, your thinking brain, and tune into your metaphysical organ, which is the mind, which is the thing that really gets still and connected to the oneness. And he was very excited, and he says he's going to look forward to it. So his birthday's coming up, and it's going to be a wonderful gift to give him, because I think every person, especially young people, should be taught how to still their minds. And a lot of people do teach children and teens and preteens and anybody who wants to learn how to still their mind. And so I'm not saying that it's going to solve the world's problems, because the world's problems are in different realms, like politics and economics and technology, et cetera, et cetera. But our minds, if we train our minds to not be in the state of fear and to be more relaxed and to accept life as what it is, guess what? The creative juices just are free to flow, to come up with solutions when you're actually in your brain thinking mind. And voila, solutions will be made, but not by fear-based thinking, only by the creative force, which is like an energy that is connected to your spirit, very much so. And I could talk a whole episode on this podcast about the connection between your creativity and procreation. Procreation is one way of being creative, but to be creative with inventing things or coming up with some solution, that is very much connected to the awakening of your spirit, which is also connected to, drum roll, the awakening of your sexuality. That's all happening together at the same time. And it really depends on what do you nurture the most that gets the most importance in your life. If you're a young person and all of a sudden you're having these sexual urges and you just want to have, you want to have cook-ups, they call it. If you want to think about that all the time, that's one option. But at the same time, if you have guidance anywhere in your life at that time, like a grandmother who's offering to teach you how to meditate, you can also be nurturing your spirit, your spiritual yearnings, which awaken at that same time. And so many people, myself included, did not have that nurturing. So I went into the sexual exploration realm big time until finally, it wasn't until I started, realizing I had addiction issues, and I wasn't ready to deal with them until my 30s. But in my young 20s, very young 20, I needed to calm down. So I begged the TM people, Transcendental Meditation people, to teach me how to meditate. And it changed my life. And I knew right from that very experience, that was in 1968, that was going to be the secret, the key that would unlock true understanding, true acceptance of who I am, what I'm doing here. And along with that comes the silly little word called happiness, which is, I'm not talking about it being superficial. I'm talking about that deep contentment that one has when you feel all right with yourself, all right with what's going on around you, and even all right with the craziness that goes on out in the world around you, whether it's the craziness of your immediate family or the craziness of politics, the craziness of the environment having so many challenges, the craziness of terrorists always threatening us, the craziness of cancer being so prevalent. I mean, the list of craziness goes on. And how to protect ourselves from the craziness is really what I'm talking about. How to be not afraid that you're going to get sucked in and killed and harmed and deeply affected, even if it's just to be sad instead of killed by the craziness. You need to have an aid to make you feel more comfortable when there's so many challenges and so many threats in our world. And so to get quiet, to go into that mind-stilling state is the answer. And that's what I told my friend Patush. I said, Patush, meditation, the stillness, even if it's a walk in the woods, they call it forest bathing. You just feel nature. You don't allow your mind to ramble. You don't talk to yourself. You don't talk back to a thought. You don't even pay attention to a thought. You just let them float in your mind and float out of your mind like leaves in the wind. And taking a walk in nature can do this, even if you have a little park, or going and touching a tree, or going and touching some earth, or watching a plant, or watching the sky, a cloud drifting by. Something about this world in its pureness, in its essence, will sing to your essence. And that's how you know that we are all connected. We are all one. There is no you and me, really, them and us. There is no other. That's a game that negative, fear-filled people have put out there. And they want to rule the world. Well, they can't rule me, and I hope they won't rule you. When you know you have a choice. That's the important thing to really remember. You and every single one of us have a choice. We can either accept that we are all one and feel that connectedness, and just it's a glorious, incredibly freeing, expansive feeling that you get when you learn to go into that wonderfully free place, which is our mind, and just join with the essence of our being, with the cosmos. And you just can't understand how expansive it is. It goes on and infinitely. There is no boundaries to your consciousness. So you might do this exercise of mind stilling. I give lots of helpful little hints on my YouTube channel. I call it the mind stillers. I mean, that's what they are. And my YouTube channel is under my name, ZLORD. And, sometimes people just need a little help, a little boost. I did. I needed teachers. There's so many people who teach meditation these days. And if you have a disturbed mind, or you know somebody who's disturbed, don't wait for another suicide. Don't wait for more negative posts on Facebook or Instagram. Just offer the suggestion that we all have a choice. We can accept that we are much, much more than we ever knew we were. We are all connected in this one energetic union of beingness. And with that, I'll say further ado, and hopefully we'll have a continued conversation about all sorts of wonderful things next week with my beloved Carter coming back, I hope. And have a pleasant time until we speak next. Om Namah Shivaya.